Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name remains Paul Mount. As you can see, it's a bit of a drab, grey winter day today. Luckily, we're heading towards the end of January. It's the 27th today, I think it is. Friday afternoon, I thought, let's break up the monotony of the grey, drab, horrible winter by popping to the cinema. A couple of films I quite fancy seeing. I quite fancy some sort of nonsensical, brain off sort of pure entertainment. I know The Fabelmans is out, the Steven Spielberg film, and Tar, the psychological thing, but I just fancy some fun. So I'm going to see Plane, starring Gerard Butler, and I'm going to see Unwelcome, which is a new British or Irish sort of folk horror thing, which I've been looking forward to for a while. Saw the trailer months ago. The film's finally getting a release in the UK. I was quite surprised to find it's in my local View cinema. So I'm going to nip in there. I bought myself some snacks. I've got some raisins. I got a protein bar, and I got my diet drink. So I'm going to pop in and see these two films. I shall report on them later. I won't do separate videos. I'll just do a video probably later tonight in the cinema room and report on these two movies. So let's go to the cinema. So here we are, out at the View cinema. It's just me, which is rather nice. When I booked it online, it didn't look as if there were many tickets sold, but appears to be nobody here. I'm going to see Plane with Gerard Butler. Okay, that's one film done. I've just come out from seeing Plane with Gerard Butler, review to come. I got a 15-minute gap until Unwelcome starts, so I thought I'd grab myself a snack. I just fancied a hot dog and a latte. So, yeah, more on Plane later on tonight. Hello there. Well, that was very nice. Enjoyed my hot dog. Still got my coffee. I'm now in the cinema taking my seat for the second film, Unwelcome, and as you can see, once again, it's just an empty cinema. A couple of other people did come in, but again, I'm on my own for Unwelcome, so I'll see you later. And welcome back. It's now a couple of days later. It's Sunday afternoon, and I'm just getting my thoughts together about my double bill from Friday: Plane, starring Gerard Butler, and Unwelcome, starring Hannah John Kamen and Douglas Booth. Really nice, as I said, to see a double bill of films. I haven't done that for a while, and to do two films which are sort of very much escapist in nature, very much sort of forget about the real world and get embroiled in the adventure stroke fantasy. So I'll talk about both films. I thought I wouldn't do two separate videos. I'll just combine them. Starting off then with Plane, which, as I said, stars Gerard Butler and Mike Coulter, who some of you may remember as Luke Cage in Netflix's very short-lived Marvel series. This is directed by Jean-Francois Richet, whose name I'm not that familiar with. The only credit of his I really recognise is the remake of Assault on Precinct 13, which came out a few years ago. This is a Gerard Butler film. Anyway, the other film I went to see, just describing something as a Gerard Butler film, I think brings those preconceptions of fairly mindless, stupid action films like those Has Fallen films. And I call them mindless and stupid, not having seen them, but they look fairly mindless in probably an entertaining way. I think he plays a CIA agent who's tasked with protecting the president, and wherever he goes, some dreadful terrorist catastrophe occurs. I hear they're fairly stupid, But they probably serve a purpose. And I think that's been the case with a lot of Gerard Butler films. And I suspected this is what we were going to get from Plane, but it wasn't quite. Last year, Gerard Butler starred in a film called Greenland, which was a sort of disaster movie about an ordinary Joe who's trying to protect his family when the news breaks that a giant asteroid is on its way to wipe out most of life on Earth, and he and his family are heading for a sanctuary in Greenland. What I liked about this film, what I liked about Gerard Butler in it, is he wasn't playing the two-fisted action man. He was just an ordinary bloke, an ordinary man on the street, who doesn't have a special set of skills. He just wants to protect his family. And I think that's carried over into Plane, which makes it slightly different from most of his sort of punch-up fare, in that his character, Brad Torrance, is an airline pilot. And it's New Year's Day. He's taking a fairly routine flight to Tokyo with 14 passengers on board the plane. It's going to be a fairly routine, boring flight. He's a little bit concerned when a convicted murderer is brought aboard the plane by a CIA agent. He's in handcuffs. He's been transported from one prison to another. He's a little bit concerned that it'll upset his passengers, but he's not overly bothered. The plane quickly hits some turbulence, which they seem to sort of ride their way over, but it soon becomes apparent the plane's been damaged and it has to crash land in a remote island in the Philippines, which they hope is deserted. Brad sets off to try and find some way of finding help. The prisoner is free for reasons that you'll discover when you watch the film, and Brad reluctantly teams up with him because this prisoner has obviously got some form for looking after himself, and he's the sort of person you need on his side in a hostile environment. However, the island isn't deserted. It's a hotbed of terrorists, separatists, and various other nasty gangs of violent thugs. They see the plane as an opportunity to get hold of something vital, a vital piece of kit. They capture all the prisoners, and then Brad, along with the prisoner, played by Mike Coulter, have to join forces to try and rescue the prisoners and also contact the outside world to try and get some help sent to them. And that's pretty much what this film is. But what it's like about this film is that Brad is a man out of his depth. He isn't a superhero. He isn't adept with his fist. There's one sort of fist fight he has with a terrorist, which isn't a normal sort of Hollywood whack pow film. It's two men tussling and crushing against furniture and rolling on the floor, and they haven't got particular fighting skills. They're just two men fighting to survive, and that's the theme of the film. It's about a man fighting to survive and do the right thing when he's in a situation that's completely out of control. And I like that. It puts a slightly more human angle on the lead character, who isn't somebody who can just rise to the occasion and put things right. Beyond that, it's fairly standard stuff. I mean, it's action-packed, it's spectacular as it needs to be. The emotional beats, just stuff like him. He wants to get back to his daughter and she worries he's going to come home. And I think what's nice about this is that in this day and age, it is quite nice to go back to those old-fashioned films where you've got a masculine sort of aesthetic to the film. It isn't pandering to any popular current obsessions. This is a family man who's a widow. He wants to look after his daughter, but he's keeping his job going, and he finds himself out of his depth. There's nothing about strong female characters. There's nothing about diversity particularly. It doesn't tick any of those boxes that people get annoyed about. And I'm all in favour of films that deal with issues of the day, and I think that's part of what filmers do. But I think sometimes it's nice to go back and do an old-fashioned action film starring a bloke. I think there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that sort of thing is sneered at these days, and it shouldn't be, because there's a market for films like that. And what I like about this is that Gerard Butler isn't just this mindless, bloke who thinks with his fists. He is a man who's scared, trying to do the right thing for the people in his care, and he's way out of his depth. And I really enjoyed this. I had a lot of fun with it. It's not a classic film. It's not going to be on my list of films at the end of the year, my best films at the end of the year. But when I sat and watched it for 90 minutes, 100 minutes, I had a good time with it. And I'm going to give it, for that, 8 out of 10. That's 8 out of 10 for Plane. On to film 2. Yeah, this is Unwelcome. Now, I've been looking forward to this film for some months. I saw the trailer for it very nearly a year ago, and it's finally arrived. I do like a sort of a British horror film. I go back to the classic Hammer days and even some other things that have come out since. Occasionally you get these nice little genre pieces that come from left of centre. And I particularly enjoyed a film that came out in 2012 called Grabbers, which was set in Ireland, and it's about this community that's attacked by these hostile worm-like creatures from space. It's a comedy, horror, science fiction film, but I really enjoyed that film. It starred Russell Tovey, I seem to remember. And that was directed and written by John Wright, who has directed Unwelcome. He didn't write the script, but I think he inspired the idea. He's interested in Irish folklore, leprechauns, little people and things like that. And that's where this story appears to be all about. If you see the trailer, you think that that's what it's about. It's actually about more than that. It's about people who really want to find a quiet place. They want to find their peace, and the modern world won't let them. And I think we can all empathise with that to an extent, because it's a very noisy, sometimes hostile world. It stars Hannah John Kamen, who most familiar to a lot of people as Ghost in the Ant-Man and the Wasp film a few years ago, and Douglas Booth. They play a young couple who, the film starts out in a domestic setting. They're in a flat in London. Maya, played by Hannah John Kamen, she's waiting the results of a pregnancy test, and when it appears to be positive, her boyfriend, Douglas Booth, goes to the local shop to get a bottle of wine to celebrate. Unfortunately, he's accosted by some thugs outside. He gives them short shrift, but they follow him home, and there's quite a nasty, brutal home invasion scene. Then post-credits, we find that a few months later, Douglas Booth's character has inherited a house in Ireland, a rambling, slightly decrepit cottage in the Irish countryside that belonged to his aunt, who's passed away. And they've managed to leave the madness of the city to start a new life out in the countryside in Ireland, but all doesn't go as might be expected. When they get there, a local tells them that a sort of tradition there that his aunt maintained, there's at the bottom of the garden, there's a sort of brick wall with a doorway and a little gap. And she tells them about a local myth where you have to leave a blood sacrifice, a piece of red meat, for example, at this little hatchway for the little people in the forest, the redcaps, they call them. Of course, they dismiss this as nonsense, but they realise that they need to go along with the tradition, so they start to do this. In the meantime, the house is falling apart. There's a hole in the roof. They can't get hold of any reputable builders. On one day on a trip out, they come across a rather ramshackle-looking builders merchants somewhere nearby. They engage the services of this family run by Colm Meaney's character, who insists on being called Daddy. And the couple find that their home isn't the sanctuary and the castle that they might have hoped it would be. I won't say any more about this film because it's a very, very unusual film. Now, this is a film which is quite dark and quite bleak and quite nasty in many ways. It isn't the sort of cheery sort of silly horror film you think it's going to be. It is really quite unpleasant in some ways. Some of the things that happen in it to these characters, you really feel for these two because they just want a quiet life, but they can't get it. Nobody will let them live the way they want to live. And it's quite unsettling because they're a nice couple. Very well played. The acting is great. It's a good script. It's a good naturalistic script. But it is a film that some people might find a little tough because it is relentlessly unpleasant. It goes into some very weird places. I think it's slightly uneven, and that things happen in the setup that don't pay off a great deal. And there is some, characters do things you think, well, why are you doing this? Maya, for example, is 8 months pregnant, due to give birth at any moment. But she goes chasing off into the forest one day, right into the middle of nowhere, where not unnaturally horrible things happen. So there's illogicalities in the script, but it was so unusual visually. I think one of the things that struck me about it, and I don't know if this is true, but I suspect it is looking at the film, there's a sense of unreality about it because the house isn't a location. I think it's quite clearly a massive set that's been built in a studio. It has that look of artificiality about it. It doesn't look like it's filmed outside. There are lots of outside scenes in the forest and in the country lanes and things, but the house looks like a huge set because the sky in the background, the lighting doesn't look quite right, and it's particularly noticeable at the end when the sky goes a vivid red for a certain reason. But it is a fantastic set and it's very detailed, but it had that unreality, which I think adds to the slight sense of unease that the story itself engenders. So yeah, I thought this was extraordinary in a bizarre sort of way because it wasn't what I expected. I was just expecting a film with these people in a house being attacked by little impy things. But it isn't that. It isn't that at all. Not completely. But I won't say any more. But it's very, very unusual, very striking film. Some people might find it too nasty, and I understand that. Because it is. It isn't a feel-good film at all. It isn't a sort of a silly horror film. It's actually a bit darker and a bit deeper than you might have expected. And at the end of the day, it is all about the sanctity of the home and how hard it is to maintain that in this hostile world. That's Unwelcome, which is in selected cinemas now. I know it's in View at the moment. I don't know if the other big chains are showing it. I'm surprised it's actually getting a fairly general release. I think it's going to be streaming next month, so you might want to wait until it streams. But then again, you might want to support indie cinema and try and track it down. If you like a slightly disturbing, unusual British horror film, recommended. That's Unwelcome, which gets from me, I'm going to give it 9 out of 10, because I thought it was striking. Right, thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, and I hope you have, why not press that subscribe button, which is probably there. Thumbs up, comment, like, and all that sort of stuff. You can also check out my new Facebook page, which I've set up. You can leave a comment there about things. I'll be posting little review links and stuff like that. So, yes, please do join me again for some more stuff. Until I see you next time. It's a laborious way of getting there. Keep taking the stuff.